Reaction to Prime Minister Mark Carney's first budget seems generally mixed, although many Indigenous leaders have expressed their disappointment. Proposed budget cuts to Indigenous Services Canada and Crown-Indigenous relations also turned out to be much smaller than initially predicted. The Liberal budget is our topic for this week's Truth in Politics panel. Also this week, reaction to Premier Wab Kinew's reaction to a Supreme Court of Canada ruling rejecting mandatory minimum sentences for those accessing or possessing child pornography. Joining me now is Niigaan Sinclair, a columnist with the Winnipeg Free Press. Niigaan, good to see you as we've perhaps messed up some flights, time zones, meetings, and everything else here today. But I guess we'll start with your initial reaction to this so-called generational budget.
Well, I mean, it's not really as transformational as perhaps advertised. In fact, it very much looks very similar to a Stephen Harper budget. High investment within a military, a big cut in civil service, and then, of course, this big, huge commitment to the Major Projects Office. There's lots to say about this budget, but for those of us, of course, here are speaking about the ways it will impact Indigenous communities, we're looking at approximately $2 billion of cuts to Indigenous Service Canada, Crown-Indigenous relations. That's bad, but then you look at, there is going to be some significant investments on water, almost exactly the amount that they're looking to cut in those departments. And then, of course, there is a huge investment within the North. The North is getting a university, Inuit Niigaan. Congratulations to all the North, all those who've been struggling for years to try to get a university to support young people in that area of the world. And of course, all the different ways in which free, prior, and informed consent is now going to be part of the budget. Just the fact that language, and I commend APTN, all the reporters who picked up on that difference in language. The government's been resisting that for quite a while and is now put it within writing. So that says that that's what the chief's been asking for quite a long time. Certainly would have reduced all the conflict in the summer if they agreed to put that in. The one thing I would just say is that there is continually a commitment to consultation, billions and billions of dollars to be committed to create consultation projects for these major projects that are going to be impacting First Nations. Let's be clear, that money is not going to First Nations. That money will be mostly going to non-Indigenous consultants. If anything, will be those consultants that work with First Nations. It will go to people who generally do not invest much in First Nations. They tend to profit off them. And that's not being mean, that's simply a fact. And so I think there's a kind of a tricky language that goes throughout the budget that's both negative and positive.
Niigaan, moving on to something back here in Manitoba, and a lot of media coverage and online reaction to what Premier Wab Kinew had to say when reacting to a Supreme Court ruling that mandatory minimums would be unconstitutional for people caught possessing or accessing child pornography. He said pedophiles should not only go to jail, but, quote, they should be buried under the prison. You wrote a column about this. Maybe you'd like to elaborate on that.
Yeah, he also said that that those who are found guilty of possessing child pornography, he used a term that is often used in prisons as a term that's called Skinner, which is often a very derogatory term to describe people who are sex offenders in prison. And if you know anything about the kind of street justice or criminal justice or jail justice that takes place within those kinds of frameworks, these are not pretty. These are violent acts that it was a little surprising for the Premier to talk about this, but the important thing to know is that he is an intergenerational survivor of child abuse. He himself not, but he has spoken freely about his father. I also am an intergenerational sex abuse survivor, and so what that means is that we, when it comes to this issue, there isn't a lot of reasonability when it comes to it, because for 150 plus years, Canada has been allowing people who have been predatory behaviors on children often to go free. People who then were rewarded with accolades by churches, institutions, schools, governments. And so for a long period of time, predators were not found guilty or held to account in any way. And so I'm not surprised that the Premier would be perhaps referring to a kind of street-level justice for people who are abusing children. The question is whether this was the time or the place in which to make that argument in relation to a Supreme Court ruling.
Right. One last thing here, Niigaan, we wanted to touch on a somber anniversary, no doubt for your family, but for many in the Indigenous community this week.
Oh, it's more or less just a big thanks and a big miigwech to everybody for all the great love and sending support our way to our family. I have 4 sisters, and my sisters and I hear all of your messages talking about our father. We can say his name now without any worry that traditionally and culturally he will want to come back and support us from the spiritual realm. Murray Sinclair Iban, Niigaan Sinclair Iban, he loved everyone so much that he went to every single one of your halls, your churches, your gathering spaces, your community centers, your chief and council offices, your convention centers. He went to everywhere that he was invited because he loved this country so much. And I know how much everyone is missing him. It is 1 year now since he began that journey to the West. And so we're missing him very much. But at the same time, we're also extremely grateful and very happy for his life, but also very happy to see the way in which the country continues to remember him, continues to honor him. There's going to be a number of schools named after him. Canada Post, if they survive this strike, will be creating a stamp, we understand, to be able to honor him. We also know all of the great work that we've created because of all the donations that have come in. We've collected several hundreds of thousands of dollars of donations in his name from Canadians, from Indigenous peoples, and we're setting up a scholarship fund at a school that will be named after him in his hometown, my hometown of Selkirk. And so we'll be setting all of those things up as well. We're very excited, and big miigwech and thanks to everybody for sending such a cacophony of love, all the messages, all the social media sort of tributes to him this past week. We really appreciate it.
Wow, great stuff there, Niigaan. Appreciate you being with us this week as always, and safe travels. We'll talk to you next week.
Thanks so much.